Sorry pag medyo huli ako sa information. Pero dahil sa mga religious jokes, siya binaril? If that is the case, is it that religious fanaticism that is more dangerous than the most insulting jokes? As an atheist, it is important to remind theists that what should be the ultimate goal in believing in a supernatural deity is to become a kinder and more compassionate person. To resort to violence because you or your God was offended simply means that you have never truly understood your faith. How can a being so infinitely powerful even be offended? It is when humans attribute human characteristics to a divine God that creates all the problems in religion. That simply means that God you believe in is a human-made God. But yeah, I completely understand his point. To unleash this level of violence because your belief is so easily offended simply means your belief itself is not rooted in the real teachings of Jesus, which is to love your neighbor as yourself, and is also to love your enemies. So, yeah, this remark is from Rafi Gutierrez, or Sir Rafi Gutierrez. Nag-reply ako dito, sabi ko, salamat sa inyong remarks, sir. I'll be making a video response on this. So punta tayo sa second paragraph niya. As an atheist, it is important to remind theists that what should be the ultimate goal in believing. So sila, si atheist, sila mga atheist, yung magre-remind sa mga theists, what should be the ultimate goal, take note, ultimate goal in believing in a supernatural deity is to become a kinder and more compassionate person. Notice that he is appealing to ultimates, universals, and objectiveness. In an atheistic perspective, paano kaya nagkakaroon ng universal laws? Universal principles? Ultimates, objective moral ought. So, yan yung i-argue ko sa point niya dito. While I understand his sentiments here, he is condemning injustice, and I completely understand why is that the case, because Sir Rafi Gutierrez, as an atheist, he is made in God's image. And by the way, no, just to clarify, if this is true na tungkol sa joke niya sa INC ay pinatay si Dagal, we condemn this act or such act. This is injustice. As Christians, meaningful ito sa amin, no? We must condemn injustice because God is just. So may meaningful justification kami why we condemn injustice. In an atheistic perspective, there is no meaningful way to even act or to even demand justice. And also, by the way, INC religion is not being accepted as an orthodox Christian belief. Para lang klaro. Sir Rafi, INC religion is not being accepted as an orthodox Christian belief. Why? Simple lang. Mamaya siguro i-flesh out natin yan. How can a being so infinitely powerful even be offended? Ito yung sagot, it is when humans attribute human characteristics to a divine God that creates all the problems in religion. So parang ang concept is man made God in his own image. So yun yung kanyang konsepto dito. That simply means that the God you believe in is a man-made God. Ulitin ko, that simply means that the God you believe in is a man-made God. So ito yung kanyang conclusion. Dahil may Diyos na although He is infinitely powerful, pero na-offend, therefore it logically follows, according to him, that this God is not true. It is simply man-made. Now, assuming that this question was addressed to Christianity in general, since we are since Sir Rafi is an atheist. So let's just assume that this question was addressed to Christianity in general. Sir Rafi is assuming that the concept of God is man-made. Now, since it was man-made, according to him, it shall then follow that the characteristics of this God was also man-made. While that is true for I and C, man-made naman talaga yung kanilang religion, that is not true para sa Christianity in general na nag-uphold sa core beliefs. We have the doctrine of the Trinity, salvation by grace through faith alone, so on and so forth. The deity of Christ, mga ganon. So yung ginagawa dito ni Sir Rafi na inference ay completely wrong. Just because an infinitely powerful God is offended, it necessarily follows that His attributes are man-made or ginawa lang siya. In logic, we call that fallacy of non sequitur, or it does not follow. Simply means that the truth of the premises does not entail its conclusion. Hindi nagfa-follow yung conclusion doon sa premises. To say that God is infinitely powerful does not mean He is neutral to evil. What logically follows is that if God is good, then He must hate evil. Ulitin ko po, if God is good, He must hate evil. So the real issue isn't whether or not God gets offended in a human sense. It's whether or not He has the right to define what is good, just, and true. If God exists, then moral laws, justice, and even love itself are meaningful because they are grounded in His character. But in an atheistic framework, these things become arbitrary human opinions. And you may lose any objective basis to call anything, whether religious violence or even compassion, right or wrong. So, to solve the problem of Sir Rafi, dahil hindi nga man-made yung religion ng Christianity, the answer is pretty simple. We know God's attributes, hindi dahil ginawa ito ng mga tao. We know God's attributes because He revealed Himself to His creatures. And since we were created in God's image, capable of understanding things using our senses, then we are now able to accept and understand God's revealed truth. According to Romans 1 verse 19, for what can be known about God is plain to man, plain to us, because God has shown it to us. And according to Psalms 19 verse 1 to 2, the heavens proclaim the glory of God. The skies display His craftsmanship. Day after day, they continue to speak. Night after night, they make Him known. And let's go back to Romans 1 verse 20. For God's invisible attributes, namely His eternal power and divine nature, has been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. So we, all of us, are without excuse. But what if they will insist, or mga atheists nating kaibigan, what if they will insist, I don't know that there is a God. There is no evidence for God's existence. What would be our reply as Christians? Well, God said, you already know Him. Man already know God. Meron na silang knowledge about God. Again, binasa natin sa Romans 1. Man has already knowledge about God, and ano ang ginagawa ng tao? They suppress that knowledge because of sin. Ulitin ko po, they suppress that knowledge because of sin. Sinasabi ito ng Diyos nang walang pagsisinungaling. God does not lie. So it is only reasonable for Christians to believe what God says about man than what man says another man. Ulitin ko po, so it is only reasonable for Christians to believe what God says about man than what man's opinion regarding another man. So sa sumunod na paragraph, sinabi niya, to unleash this level of violence because your belief is so easily offended simply means your belief itself is not rooted in the real teachings of Jesus, which is to love your neighbor as yourself and also to love your enemy. First of all, gusto ko lang i-recognize dito yung internal critique na inattempt ni Sir Rafi that if INC as a Christian religion is true or adhere to Christian teachings, and if this is true, we're not saying na dahil na grupo ng INC talaga yung pumatay. We're not saying that. If this is true lang, granting without conceding, if this is true, then nag-attempt ng internal critique si Sir Rafi sa religion ng INC na kung ang INC is a legit Christian religion or Christian belief, then dapat nag-adhere sila sa love your neighbor and love God. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself and then love God. So I agree dito sa sentiment ni Sir Rafi. However, INC's teaching is not rooted in Christian teaching. In fact, they twist the truth of the scriptures. They deny that Christ is eternally God, an old heresy called Arianism. So what is Arianism? Arianism is a heresy that denies the full divinity of Jesus Christ. It was taught by Arius from Alexandria in early 4th century, and it claims that Jesus is not God in the fullest sense, but a created being. So the belief of INC is not new. It is an old heresy, once again, called Arianism. While I agree with the sentiments of Sir Rafi, we also need to address inconsistencies ng atheism niya. Okay? We also need to address inconsistencies in his atheism. Number one, ang mga ina-assume niya is that the murder of Dagal is absolutely or objectively and morally wrong. Second, the murder of Dagal is objectively unjust. Third, violence is objectively wrong. Fourth is that he's assuming that there is an objective, unchanging, universal ethical principles. So, ang question dito, bakit merong mga unchanging, universal ethical principles if atheism is true? If yung pinaniniwalaan ni Sir Rafi ngayon sa kanyang atheistic perspective ay totoo. Now, sa pakikipag-debate and discuss ko sa maraming atheists, sa atheist community, sa topic about morality, none of them have meaningfully provided answers sa issues about moral. None of them is capable of answering those questions meaningfully. I'm not saying na hindi nila ina-attempt sagutin. What I'm saying is yung meaningful justification regarding objective, unchanging, universal ethical principles. And some of them appeal to what we call well-being. Now, of course, that can be still questioned, no? Why is appealing to well-being a good thing? It is good because so on, because this and that. Wala na silang meaningful justification doon, kundi assume na lang nila yung bagay na gusto na lang din nilang patunayan. Ang tawag natin doon is begging the question. So yeah, they are begging the question over and over again. In Christianity, not in INC's worldview, but yeah, in Christianity, God is the standard of morality. His justice flows from His goodness. God is just. God is good. Now, I can grant that Sir Rafi is really totally sincere with regards to his sentiments about the injustice happened to Dagal. But without God, he has no meaningful appeal to justice. So, Sir Rafi, if you are genuinely concerned about people misunderstanding Christianity and misusing it just to justify violence, then I fully agree with you, Sir Rafi. For atheism in general, I would challenge you to examine whether your own worldview can provide a consistent foundation for condemning evil and upholding good. The God of the Bible not only gives us a moral foundation, but also calls us to true justice, peace, and grace, a foundation that atheism cannot provide. So sa mga kaibigan ko na atheist at sa lahat ng atheism in general, bow the knee to Christ our King.